Prepare your mind, body, and soul for a revenge tale the likes of which you have never seen before, because we're talking about Uwe Boll's cinematic masterpiece, Rampage. No, we're not. No, we're not. We're not talking about Uwe Boll's movie. That is what I call a lie. Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba-ba. Hey everybody, my name is Andrew Fantasia. Welcome to Thumb Together. Today we're going to be talking about Rampage together. As always, if you like this video, maybe give it a thumbs up and give some love to that subscribe button so I can keep making more of them. I want you to sit down and take a deep breath. Breathe and think about where you are right now. Remember the time and place. You will never forget it again. Because today is the day that the video game movie curse is broken! They did it! They did it! They finally made a fun video game movie! It finally happened! Somebody finally made a good movie out of you! Finally! We have been waiting since this for someone to just come along and understand that you can have fun with a video game adaptation and you can make a movie that's good, and somebody finally did. Thank you, sweet Jesus. Rampage is fun. That's the moral of the story, guys. Rampage is fun. So what the hell is Rampage? Well, Rampage is based off of a Sega Genesis video game. I think it was Sega Genesis. And the game was just about giant monsters climbing around buildings and getting shot at by military helicopters. It was very basic stuff. And when I found out that they were making a movie about it, I was more than a bit confuzzled because I didn't see, that there was enough there. Like just looking at the gameplay, I couldn't. I was like, what in this prompted you to write a script about it? And I was just like, well, okay, if you say so, well, Rampage it is. All right, let's do it. We're rampaging. I'm so glad that they made this movie because it's not amazing. It's not. It's not even a great movie, but it is a pretty damn good movie. And considering the video game adaptations we've gotten, considering all the BS we've had to put up with, pretty damn good is an A+ as far as this bell curve is concerned. Rampage is simply about a guy named Davis Okoye, who's played by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. And Davis is an animal lover, and he works at the San Diego Nature Preserve or something like that. And he works with animals because he's good with them. And his best friend is a giant albino gorilla named George. And George and Davis are BFFs, and they communicate with each other very easily. The Rock will be like, "Hey George, we're friends, right? Are you okay?" And the gorilla will sign back to him. Between this, The Shape of Water, and A Quiet Place, I am learning so much sign language this year. I'm just going to be fluent. By the time Christmas rolls around, these reviews are all just going to be me doing this. So Davis is a good guy. He's a nice dude and he likes animals. And George is a nice gorilla and he's fun and playful and such. But then shit gets real and there's an evil corporation, because corporations are always evil. And they make this, I don't know what the hell it is, but they make this stuff that makes animals grow and mutate and become more aggressive. And the stuff is up in this satellite, and the satellite explodes, and the space station it's on blows up too. And this stuff starts careening down towards the Earth, and various animals start sniffing around at it, and it infects them and makes them grow and become really, really dangerous. And that's our movie. That's all we need. We've got George the gorilla, who is running around being a giant gorilla. We've got a wolf that mutates into this big spiny wolf and it's running around and eating people. And we've got the one that steals the show, in my opinion, a giant alligator that just tears shit up. Dwayne Johnson and his new friend, who is a doctor played by Naomi Harris, they have to get to the bottom of this and save the world from these giant animals that are running amok. And by the world, I mean Chicago, because the animals just go and attack Chicago. Malin Ackerman is the CEO of this evil company. Man, she's a psychopath. Her office is at the very top of the Sears Tower. Actually, it's the Willis Tower now. I keep forgetting. Every store I love dies. She has her office at the top of the Willis Tower, and she sets off I don't know what it is, like a sonar ping that only the animals can hear, and they go nuts, and they all rush towards the tower. And so all the animals end up congregating in downtown Chicago, and The Rock and the military have to basically team up and stop the monsters from destroying everything, which they're doing a pretty damn good job of because they're big. And that's Rampage. And it's a lot of fun. That's what we wanted from a movie based off of this. What else can you give us? And they made The Rock a likable guy, which he pretty much always is. They made Naomi Harris a likable character as well. The characters in this were very stereotypical, but they were fun. They had fun with it. Malin Ackerman was as evil could be, but it was fun. We liked how evil she was, and we liked when she got her comeuppance because of it. Jeffrey Dean Morgan, he might have stolen the whole movie from me. He was basically playing Foghorn Leghorn with a gun. That's who this guy is. He was hilarious. He referred to himself as an, quote, old cowboy probably more times than I can count. Joe Manganiello is like a Blackwater mercenary, and he's a big meanie, and he's got muscles and a gun, and he fights things with guns because he's mean. And that's the extent of his character. And I'm not trying to mock it. That's just how his character is, but it's cool. They have fun with it, just like they had fun with this. One of the characters in this movie is a man with 4 arms, and they have fun with that, and they embrace that, and they make it work. Rampage does the same thing. Obviously, there's stuff I didn't like about it. There's lots of little things I didn't like, but the big things that were negatives for me are actually spoilers, so I'm going to save that for a little bit later. Rampage had all the hallmarks of a 90s blockbuster action movie, like an Independence Day, like a Godzilla 98, with the fun cheesiness, the fun just completely balls to the wall, crazy action, and surprisingly more violence than I was expecting. There's a lot of gory deaths in this movie. It's labeled as, this kid-friendly romp, and it is. This is a movie you can take your kids to. They'll have fun. But it surprises you with how much it gets away with. That was the movies from my childhood, baby. That's how they were. I mean, look no further than something like The Goonies. Every kid growing up in the 80s loved The Goonies. The Goonies was not a triple G rated hugfest. The Goonies was scary and violent and full of profanity. Rampage is scary and violent and full of profanity, but you can take your kids and they're going to have a ball. You know why? Because your kid knows that the word shit exists. They do. Your kid knows that shit is a word that they can say. They're not stupid, despite what you might think. So they're going to have a lot of fun in this. Adults, you're going to have a lot of fun with a handful of little moments that, again, I won't spoil yet, but a handful of little moments that really are unexpected. And they're very small. They're very, like, the plot, you can see it through from beginning to end and know what's going to happen, yes, because it's that kind of movie. But there are tiny moments in there, like sprinkles, that make you sort of pause and be like, oh, wow, that happened. I was not, I didn't think it was going to do that. And they don't affect the plot hugely, but they're there. And they were fun. I think the best way to describe it, it's a Saturday morning cartoon with balls. I think that's how I can put it best. It's a Saturday morning cartoon with balls. It's not afraid to show characters dying. It's not afraid to show characters being violently killed or violently injured. It's not afraid to throw a few harmless cuss words at you every now and then. It's just fun, man. It's like every 12-year-old's dream come true. I don't know if there's toys of these giant I want a George toy, man. George is my boy. He's adorable. All right, let's get into spoilers. There's not a whole lot, but the little surprises and the little things that I didn't care for are all considered spoilers, so ye have been warned. So what were the things that surprised me? There were a handful that I thought were really cool. First off, Joe Manganiello. Joe Manganiello is known as being a big, buff guy. Solid muscle from the tip of his head to the tip of his toe. He's just muscle. The Rock is playing our hero, and Joe Manganiello is playing a guy who's clearly not a hero at all. He's a bad dude. So once we're introduced to both these characters, your mind is already taken leaps and bounds ahead, and you're like, oh, okay, these two are going to square off. This is going to be like a big deal. They're going to duke it out. You're going to have two monsters fighting, and then in the foreground, you're going to have two human monsters fighting, and it's going to be wicked. But that actually doesn't happen. Joe Manganiello is in one scene, and then the giant wolf eats him. And it came out of nowhere because, like I said, this is the kind of movie that would set you up with these characters and you think, all right, we're going to get this. Then he just dies. He's in the woods and the wolf gobbles him up and that's it. He bites him in half. He's done. While I would have liked to see Joe fight The Rock because, like I said, monster versus monster and then monster versus monster, that would have been cool. I still think this was really funny because here comes this guy who's like, oh, I'm a pretty famous actor and I'm known for being like a big action dude and I'm going to hunt down some monsters. And he doesn't hunt down shit. He gets eaten in like 2 minutes flat. So that was really fun, and that was just a surprise. It was a nice surprise, and it's nice when movies, especially movies like this, can surprise you. Another thing was Jeffrey Dean Morgan. Everything he's in the trailer, again, your mind is jumping ahead and you're like, I know exactly what kind of character this guy is. You know, he comes on, he's got a suit, he's a government agent, and he's got George the gorilla locked up in a cage. And in the trailers, he's all like, that gorilla's a menace. And I'm going to see to it that he stays right in that cage. And you're like, ooh, this guy's a dick. And Dwayne The Rock Johnson's going to have to beat him up and teach him some respect. And he's going to be a bad guy. He's just a big old meanie. He ends up being like the most lovable dude in the world. He's got this shit-eating grin on his face the whole movie. But he's a nice guy. He ends up being one of the good guys. And he helps The Rock and Naomi Harris to do whatever they got to do. He's like their inside man in the military. The big bad general's like, no, you can't be in my war room because you're civilians. Go and evacuate with everybody else. Jeffrey Dean Morgan is the guy who's like, yeah, they evacuated. They're totally not in the middle of Chicago right now doing some science things. Don't you worry about that. Just focus on your tanks. This old cowboy says it's A-okay. He turns into just this lovable dude and you want to see more of him. I wish he had more screen time, to be honest. I wish he was there on the ground floor with them running from a giant alligator because, as far as I'm concerned, he killed it. He killed it. Malin Ackerman is this very, like I said, over-the-top, cartoony supervillain, just like a corporate Satan of a person. And there is a scene where she catches The Rock and Naomi Harris snooping through her lab. And, you know, her and her brother's like her weaselly sidekick. And he's like constantly afraid. But her and her brother like catch them in the act, and the brother's like pointing a gun at them, and he's like, "Get out of our building, or I'm going to shoot you," whatever. And you know, it's the typical standoff where it's like, oh, you know, they're trapped. Like, what are they going to get captured now? What's going to happen to our heroes? And Malin Ackerman she's like, she grabs the gun from her brother. She's like, you're useless. And she points the gun at The Rock, and she fucking shoots The Rock in the stomach. She doesn't even hesitate. She shoots him. I was like, bravo. So what were the few things that did not work for me? Well, those are spoilers too. That's why I saved them for this. Again, they're small things. And they're things that I should have expected with a movie like this. But because the movie already did so many unexpected things, as we've just seen, I was kind of hoping for a little bit more than this. And they're both very similar, actually, the two big things that kind of bug me. And it's that the stakes kind of got lowered once we got to the final showdown. Like I said, Malin Ackerman shoots The Rock, like right here. And he drops, he goes down, and he's in pain for the rest of the movie. The rest of the movie, he's like, I'm in pain. But it doesn't really do anything at the end of the day. That gunshot wound didn't slow him down. It didn't, you know, he didn't need to get like medical attention. Like that didn't turn into a thing where he's like, I gotta go stop the gorilla, but first I need to patch up my wound. No, he just literally spends the rest of the movie just like holding it with his hand and being like, ooh, this really hurts. Like he's got a cramp or something. And I'm like, man, I know you're a big dude, Rock, but that's a gunshot. Like I wish that had meant more. I wish getting shot in the sternum had meant a little bit more than just, ow, that's annoying, because that's what it ended up being. He just walked it off, essentially. The second thing, which is a very similar thing, is George, the gorilla. Eventually, he calms down, but he's still big, and he helps The Rock fight the other two monsters. And during this big monster fight, George gets friggin' beat to hell. He gets impaled on like a giant metal pole, like right through his chest. After the dust settles and the bad guys are defeated, The Rock goes up to George and he's like, George, you okay, buddy? George is dying. He's lying there and he's like, I'm dying. I'm a big gorilla and I'm gonna die. He doesn't talk. That's just me paraphrasing. We get this moment where he's like, I'm dead, and he dies. And I'm like, oh, that's really sad, but that's kind of sweet. He died saving The Rock's life. But then they kind of twisted around on us, and they established earlier that George has a a fun sense of humor. He's got a twisted sense of humor. He was faking his death just to get a rise out of The Rock, just because he thought George thinks it's funny. So, you know, he's sitting there dead for like a couple minutes, and we're like, oh, poor George. And then he starts twitching, and he's looking at The Rock, and his eyes open, and he's like, I fooled you. That's funny, too. I got a good laugh out of that moment, and so did everybody in the theater. And it's nice that George survived, because he's a cool character. But, again, where did our stakes go at that point? I mean, George, you got impaled, sir. You got impaled, you got burned, you got bitten. He's a white gorilla, but by the end of the movie, he's a pink gorilla because he is covered in his own blood. He's just in horrible, horrible shape, and it makes perfect sense that he would die at that point. But then for him to just get up and be like, haha, fooled you, I'm fine. Again, where did my stakes go? Like that and the whole gunshot thing are just the classic. It's just like that Simpsons episode. I thought you were dead. Nope. And that's it. But you know what? If that's the worst thing that can happen to me in this movie, I think I'll be okay. I think I will make like The Rock and walk it off. Because otherwise, I had a hell of a fun time. Rampage, thank you for being a fun movie. So that has been Thumb Together. That's Rampage. I'm Andrew Fantasia. Thank you so much for letting me prattle on about gorillas and sign language and bullet wounds for however long this video has gone on. I'll see you here on the channel next time. Until then, adios. So you got competition now, huh? Got a little bit of competition. What are you going to do about it? You going to take that sitting down? You going to let Rampage walk all over you like that? That's what I thought. Doormat.